What's going on, guys? It's Brandon Beck here today, and I'm not sure why everything looks so far away. Let me see if I can fix that a little bit. Trying to get my camera to stay. That maybe? There we go, that looks a little better. Welcome back to another season video as I try to get my face in the camera. We've got the 2015-16 NHL season. A season in which free agency was quite horrible, honestly, but the trades popped the hell off. We'll start with the Central Division. Actually, just realized I didn't mark any of the teams that made the playoffs that missed the playoffs, so I'm going to do that right now. I'll go through it when I do it. So Dallas, after missing the playoffs in 2015, they go right up. 50-23-9, 109 points. St. Louis, 49-24-9, 107 points. Chicago, 47-26-9, 103 points. Nashville, 41-27-14, 96 points. That's your first wild card. Minnesota, 38-33-11, 87 points. Perpetual mediocrity. Can never get above that wild card line, but are good enough to be in the playoffs every year, but not good enough to maybe win a round, do an upset or so. Other than that, not so much. Colorado, 39-39-4, 82 points. They're 5 points out. And then Winnipeg falls right back out of the playoffs, 35-39-8, 78 points. Anaheim leads the Pacific, 46-25-11, 103 points. A rare LA Kings top 2 seed, 48-28-6, 102 points. San Jose back in the playoffs as well, so LA and San Jose after a year out are back in the playoffs. 46-30-6, 98 points. What's funny is Anaheim would have been 4th in the Central Division, LA would have been 5th, San Jose would have been 6th, but San Jose is better than both wild cards, so average overall is better than the Central Divisions, but you know. Arizona 35-39-8, 78 points. Calgary falls right back out of the playoffs at 35-40-7, 77 points. Vancouver also falls right back out of the playoffs after their one good season. We won't see them for a while now. 31-38-13, 75 points. Edmonton, even with McDavid, is still somehow awful. And if they got Matthews this year, I would have lost my mind. 31-43-8, 70 points. The reason I mentioned that, Edmonton had 70 points without trying to tank. Toronto had 69 points while trying to tank. Florida, out of nowhere, wins the Atlantic Division. 47-26-9, they make their way back into the playoffs. Realize they did this in 2012 too, and the same ending happened with this season, but we'll get there. Tampa, 46-31-5, 97 points. They are considered contenders after they're losing in the final to Chicago, but they're a contender. Detroit, this is the last playoff appearance we'll see for Detroit, but we also haven't seen them miss the playoffs yet, so it's fair. 41-30-11, 93 points. And just like the year previous, they tie with Boston, who finishes outside the playoffs because Detroit has the this is the tiebreaker both years. Boston could have made the playoffs every year from 2008 to present, and these 2 years they got screwed over by Detroit. 42-31-9, 93 points. Ottawa falls right back out of the playoffs because that's how it works. 38-35-9. Montreal falls right back out of the playoffs at 38-38-6 because Carey Price was not playing world beater. Montreal was not very good when Carey Price was not beating the world. Buffalo 35-36-11, 81 points. Toronto 29-42-11, 69 points. That is a bottom out. And you know who's left with the first overall pick? Austin Matthews. Washington wins the President's Trophy, as I forgot to write up there as well. 56-18-8, 120 points with their first year as Barry Trotz behind the bench. I believe that's the first year with Trotz behind the bench, or is that 2014-15? I don't remember. Pittsburgh, 48-26-8, 104 points. Rangers, 46-27-9, 101 points. The Islanders, 45-27-10, 100 points. Philadelphia back in the playoffs because every even year they make it, every odd year they don't. 41-27-14, 96 points. Carolina, 35-31-16, 86 points. New Jersey, 38-36-8, 84 points. Columbus, 34-40-8, 76 points. So, about the regular season, not really much to say. Is this the year that no Canadian teams make the playoffs? Yeah, this is the year. This is the one year that, for the first time ever, no Canadian teams made the playoffs. Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Edmonton, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg. Yeah. And even Buffalo, the closest thing to Canadian team, also didn't make the playoffs. In terms of the playoffs, speaking of the Devil, Central Division Team 1, Dallas, beats Wildcard 2, Minnesota in 6. Central Division Team 2, St. Louis, beats Central Division Team 3, Chicago, in 7. Chicago was down 3-1 in the series, and Patrick Kane did everything he could to bring his team back. Duncan Keith also had a very good series, but Troy Brouwer, in the remaining moments of Game 7, the Hawks came back from 2-0 down in Game 7, and Brouwer put a needle in it. They could not get the tire, and this would signal the end of Hawk dominance as they started going downward. It was a series I didn't expect them to lose, which was the most disturbing part. And this is the point now, 2015-16. I'm 12 years old going into B, and I remember all of this. I remember digesting it. I remember actually thinking about how it was impacted. But I didn't think it was going to be the end of anything anytime soon, considering how the regular season went, especially for one specific man. It's actually the perfect season for doing this because I have a story to tell midway through this as well. Pacific Division Team 1, Anaheim loses to Wildcard 1, Nashville in 7 because Nashville is a bad matchup for Anaheim. Anaheim cannot beat Nashville. P2 versus P3, LA versus San Jose. San Jose, the lower seed, beats LA in 5. No comeback for the Kings in this one. In the East, Florida, after winning the Atlantic Division, falls to the New York Islanders, who had not won a series in 23 years. The Panthers at this point hadn't won a series in 20 years, the Islanders in 23. The Islanders' curse is the one that's broken. They win it in 6 games off of John Tavares' overtime winner in Game 6. They move on. Tampa Bay versus Detroit, A2 versus A3. Tampa Bay wins that series in 5. Detroit officially done with the playoffs from here on out. M1 Washington versus Wildcard 2 Philly. Washington goes up 3-0. Philly wins the next 2, but Washington closes it out in Game 6, which worried people. Because Washington was such a world-beating force in this regular season, and it did not look that way in the playoffs. Pittsburgh, M2, beats their nemesis Rangers, who knocked them out the past 2 years in a row, M3 in 5 games as well. Second round, C1 versus C2, Dallas versus St. Louis. St. Louis wins that one in 7 because Dallas really can't beat St. Louis. That's just kind of how it works usually. Actually, in the late 90s, I guess that's how it worked. But in this era, no. Wildcard 1 Nashville goes up against P3 San Jose. Nashville loses that series in 7 to San Jose. So San Jose off to their conference final, and they've been there before. Nashville was giving proceedings of what they do the next year, because Nashville has a wild card for whatever reason is really good, but when they're favorites, they just fall off the map. But San Jose and St. Louis in the conference final, 2 teams have never won a Stanley Cup. And then in the East, wild card 1 to the Islanders fall in 5 to A2 Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning were going for it again. M1 Washington falls to M2 Pittsburgh in 6 because why? Pittsburgh is a bad matchup for Washington. Pittsburgh beats Washington, and that's how it works. Conference final. The San Jose Sharks, finally, after all this time, all these conference finals, all these series they've won, and they finally make the Cup final in 6 games over the St. Louis Blues. P3 beats C2. And then M2 beats A2 in 7 as Pittsburgh, really thanks to Matt Murray, gets the team to 7 games. Phil Kessel and Matt Murray were 2 of the big reasons why this team made it to the final. In the final, P3 San Jose versus M2 Pittsburgh. Game 1 in Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh wins 3-2. In Game 2, they win 2-1 in overtime. So they go to San Jose up 2-0, where Jonas Donskoy, I believe Connor Sherry got the winner in Game 2. Jonas Donskoy gets the winner in Game 3 for San Jose in overtime. It's a 2-1 series. Pittsburgh, though, wins Game 4 in San Jose to have a chance to win the Cup on home ice. They don't. San Jose wins 4-2 in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh goes back to San Jose. They win 3-1. They win their second Stanley Cup of the Crosby era. And little did we know they'd be back again. In terms of the final, it was all right. Nothing special. Phil Kessel robbed of the Conn Smythe. Matt Murray robbed of the Conn Smythe, but they thought Ned Crosby might not ever get here again, so we need to give him a Conn Smythe. So the Conn Smythe went to Crosby. And it would go to Crosby the next year, who deserved it a lot more the next year. We'll get to that now. Award winners. The Art Ross goes to Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks. This is his big year. 46, 60, 46 goals, 60 assists, and 106 points. He was the next closest, I believe, was Jamie Benn with 89 points. Kane dominated, and it was helped by a certain teammate of his. The Masterton goes to Jaromir Jagr of the Florida Panthers, who's still playing. The Calder goes to Artemi Panarin of the Chicago Blackhawks. Panarin and Kane, they should have never been separated. I would have traded Taves at the time to keep Panarin. Conn Smythe, Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Selke goes to Anze Kopitar of the LA Kings. The Hart goes to Patrick Kane as well, the Chicago Blackhawks. In terms of the story I was going to tell earlier, it's not much of a story. My coworker actually saw Patrick Kane downtown in the city yesterday. So, was I jealous? Absolutely. But, yeah, she sent me, I think we're sitting next to Patrick Kane. He looks familiar. And then they sent me, a side glance. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's him. Adams goes to Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals. The Norris goes to Drew Doughty of the LA Kings. The Clancy goes to Henrik Sedin of the Vancouver Canucks. The Lady Byng also goes to Anze Kopitar, so Kopitar getting some hardware this year. The Lindsay goes to Patrick Kane as well, the Hawks. Messier goes to Shea Weber of Nashville. Rocket goes to Alexander Ovechkin of Washington with 50 goals. The Vezina goes to Braden Holtby of Washington with a 48-9-7 record. Domination. A lot because of his team. .922 save percentage, 2.2 goals against average, and 3 shutouts. The Jennings is shared between Frederik Andersen and John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. What a goaltending tandem. And they had Jonas Hiller in 2014 as well. In terms of free agency, not a lot of names. There's only 2 columns here because there wasn't a lot. Hunwick to Toronto because Toronto's tanking. Boschman to Colorado. Greiss to the Islanders. Paul Martin to San Jose. Andre Sekera to Edmonton. Michael Neuver to Philly, who eventually, I remember he collapsed and he fainted mid-game, and that was scary. Mark Letestu to Edmonton, Blake Como to Colorado, Brad Richardson to Arizona, Michael Frolik to Calgary, Barrett Jackman to Nashville, Jonas Enroth to the LA Kings, P.A. Parito to Toronto Maple Leafs, Victor Stahlberg to the New York Rangers after he's bought out by Nashville, Brad Richards to Detroit after his year in Chicago, Gregory Campbell to Columbus, Matt Bolesky to Boston. It did not work out for Bolesky in Boston. Winnick to Toronto, Vermette goes back to Arizona, Horkoff to Anaheim, Justin Williams is probably the biggest name of this free agency, and he goes to Washington. Kyle Brodziak to St. Louis, Koli Koliakovo to Buffalo, Mike Koska to Ottawa, Joel Ward to San Jose, Luke Adam to the Rangers, and that was a bust from Buffalo. Dan Ellis to Washington, who I did not know was still playing. Sean Mathias to Toronto, Matt Irwin to Boston, McGrattan to Anaheim, John Scott to San Jose, Chris Stewart to Anaheim, Johnny Oduya to Dallas, Alex Semin to Montreal after being bought out by Carolina, Eric Fair to Pittsburgh, Matt Cullen to Pittsburgh, so they are Stanley Cup champions. Anyone else that go to Pittsburgh as well that I missed? No. Jarrett Stoll to the Rangers, Christian Ehrhoff to LA, Cody Franzen to Buffalo, Schlemko to New Jersey, Steve Bernier to the Islanders, Zidlicki to the Islanders, Brad Boyes to Toronto, Lee Stepniak to New Jersey as he just keeps collecting teams, Scotty Upshall to St. Louis, another one that just collects teams, Fleischman to Montreal, Gomez to St. Louis, Jack Skilly to Colorado, Peter Budaj to LA, Martin Havlat to St. Louis, who would have his contract terminated, I believe, by mutual contract termination, Tyler Kennedy to New Jersey, Mike Richards to Washington, who had mutual contract termination because he was on some stuff, Daniel Paille to the Rangers, and Scott Gomez goes to Ottawa after his contract termination by the St. Louis Blues as well. In terms of trades, I don't have all of them on the board, so I got another list of them right in front of me. June 26, 2015, first goes to Ottawa for Robin Leonard and David Legwand going to Buffalo. June 26, 2015, Hamilton goes to Calgary, Dougie Hamilton for a first and 2 seconds to Boston. June 26, 2015, Milan Lucic goes to LA for Martin Jones, Colin Miller, and a first going to Boston. June 26, 2015, Ryan O'Reilly and Jamie McGinn to Buffalo for Nikita Zadorov, Mikhail Grigorenko, who never got it together at the NHL level, JT Comfort in a second. June 26, 2015, Griffin Reinhart goes to Edmonton for a first and a second going to the New York Islanders. We're into the Chiarelli era of Edmonton, and got moves like that, and you wonder why this team was so bad. But then again, it was like that before he even got there. June 26, 2015, Palmieri goes to New Jersey for a second and a third to Anaheim. June 27, 2015, Eddie Lack goes to Carolina for a third and a seventh. So in the span of 3 years, The Canucks have gotten rid of Schneider, they got rid of Luongo, and they got rid of Lack. They had 3 goalies. They got rid of all of them. On the bright side, though, in return for Luongo, they did get Markstrom. June 27, 2015, Niemi goes to Dallas for a 7th to San Jose. June 27, 2015, Hagelin, a 2nd and a 6th go to Anaheim for Emerson Edom, and a 2nd going to the Rangers. June 27, 2015, Wisniewski goes to Carolina for an Anton Hudobin going to Anaheim. June 27, 2015, Cam Talbot and a 7th go to Edmonton for a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 7th. June 27, 2015, Antti Ranta goes to the Rangers for Ryan Haggerty going to Chicago. Wow, what a blow by Chicago, to say the least. Never even heard of this guy. I remember Ranta at the time. He was not happy that Darling kind of replaced him in the 2015 playoffs as the backup, because the Hawks were running 3 goalies. They had Crawford, they had Ranta, and they had Darling. They keep Darling, they get rid of Ranta, and should have kept Ranta. But, I mean, Darling was fine until when he left Chicago, he was no longer fine. But for Ranta, he was not happy. He rejected a cup ring. He didn't want anything to do with Chicago after that. And yeah. June 27, 2015, Grossman and Pronger go to Arizona for Sam Gagner, a conditional 3rd or a 4th going to Philadelphia. You're probably thinking Chris Pronger doesn't play anymore. Yes, this is where we begin to see Arizona taking on contracts. You'll see Datsuk's contract and Pronger's and Hosa's and whoever, Weber's. All those contracts all get taken up by Arizona. And now they're almost done with all of them. They only have Weber's left, I believe. June 30th, 2015, Martin Jones is traded to San Jose for Sean Corrali and a 1st going to Boston. June 30th, 2015, Brandon Saad, Michael Pelliota, and Alex Broadhurst are traded to Columbus for Artem Anisimov, Mark O'Donoghue, I did a career video on him, Jeremy Moore, Corey Tropp, and a 4th going to Chicago. Losing Saad hurt, but Anisimov filled in perfectly for Saad. Anisimov, Panarin, and Kane was dominant. Anisimov revived his career. I mean, he was already a decent player, but his career got so much better because he played with Panarin and Kane. And he would be a good staple in Chicago for about 3 years. In terms of Saad, he would come back eventually and be on the same team with Anisimov for a trade, which we'll discuss in the 2017-18 video. And one that's going to give me heart palpitations. June 30th, 2015. We're still in the offseason. This is a crazy offseason. BXO is traded to Anaheim for a 2nd going to Vancouver. July 1st, 2015. Phil Kessel, Tim Erickson, and Tyler Biggs, along with a conditional 2nd, go to Pittsburgh for Nick Spaulding, Kasperi Kapanen, Scott Harrington, and a conditional 1st, and as well as a 3rd going to Toronto. Kessel is gone, and he goes to Pittsburgh. July 1st, 2015. Riley Smith and Mark Savard go to Florida for Jimmy Hayes going to Boston. Little did we know how lopsided that is in favor of Boston at the time. Rest in peace, however, to Jimmy Hayes. July 2nd, 2015, to TJ Oshie goes to Washington for Troy Brouwer, Phoenix Copley, and a 3rd going to St. Louis. Of course, Copley's now with LA. Brouwer's out of the league. I believe he's retired. Oshie's career might be over. And so Oshie and Kessel, that was kind of band for band. Pittsburgh got Kessel, and to respond, Washington got Oshie. July 10th, 2015, Chicago drinks the stupid juice again. They trade Patrick Sharp and along with Steven Johns, who was a highly touted prospect at the time, never developed, to Dallas for Trevor Daley, Ryan Garbett. They traded a city icon in Patrick Sharp for absolute garbage in what they got. Trevor Daley sucked in Chicago. He was gone. Ryan Garbett, bottom 6er, he was all right, still traded out in the middle of the year. They ended up with nothing from that trade so quickly. Of course, Sharp comes back. He has a great year in Dallas. His 2nd year is not so good, but he comes back. But they could have used him. July 28th, 2015, Brandon Sutter and a 3rd go to Vancouver for Nick Bonino, Adam Clendenning, and a 2nd going to Pittsburgh. September 11th, 2015, Chris Versteeg, Joachim Nordstrom, and a 3rd go to Carolina for someone named Robertson, someone named Massey, and a 5th going to Chicago. Versteeg had overstayed his welcome in Chicago. Nordstrom was a young guy. He ended up in Boston, I believe, for that 2019 Stanley Cup finalist run. But overall, the Hawks, this is a salary dump right here. September 17th, 2015, one of the most bizarre trades I've ever seen is done here. Michael Grabner goes to Toronto for Beck, Finn, Verhaeghe, Nilsson, and Gibson. Only notable piece there is Carter Verhaeghe. 5 guys for one guy who Grabner was all right. I mean, 5 guys for one. I mean, Verhaeghe was probably better. I'd take Verhaeghe for Grabner. If you're offering me that 1-for-1 right now, I'm taking Verhaeghe all day. But at the time, Verhaeghe was still developing. He wasn't who he is today. Grabner was a decent player. Nothing really much to say about that. December 14, 2015, Rob Scuderi is traded to Chicago for Trevor Daley going to Pittsburgh. And of course, Trevor Daley hits it off in Pittsburgh, wins 2 Stanley Cups, just to make it more painful. December 28, 2015, Scrivens is traded to Montreal for Cassian going to Edmonton. Of course, Cassian is in Edmonton until just a couple years ago. January 3rd, 2016, the Hawks make a good trade here. Richard Panik to Chicago for Jeremy Morin to Toronto. Morin, I've done a career video on him, fringe NHLer, was a frequent call-up for the Hawks when he was on the team because he was so often on and off. Panik comes to Chicago, and he's very good for 2 years. He plays, well, you have Kane, Panarin, and Anisimov on one line. Taze and Panik and Hossa are fantastic together. So, overall, good for that. January 6, 2016, LeCavalier and Luke Shen go to LA for Wheel and a third to Philadelphia. So I assume that's just a cap dump by Philadelphia, and LA looking for some depth adds those pieces. January 6, 2016, Ryan Johansson goes to Nashville for Seth Jones to Columbus 1-for-1. A trade in which Johansson ends up in Nashville as long as Jones ends up in Columbus. Johansson ends up in Colorado, then in Philadelphia, still is. For Jones, he's in Chicago. So, there you go. Now to the trades I don't have on the board. January 8th, 2016, Vancouver gets Emerson Edom, who was traded earlier on the board. The Rangers get Nick Jensen and a 6th-round pick. So Nick Jensen's name dropped there. Now he's in Ottawa. Other moves, here we go. January 15th, 2016, John Scott and Victor Bartley are traded to Arizona for Jared Tenorti and Stephane Fournier. John Scott and Jared Tenorti, a couple of Blackhawks there. January 16th, 2016, Anaheim gets David Perron and Adam Clendenning from Pittsburgh in exchange for Carl Hagelin. So Hagelin traded to Anaheim, Clendenning traded to Pittsburgh. They swap places, and Perron, who I believe I had earlier on the board, wasn't he? Or was that last year? Because he was in Pittsburgh for a year. That's right, he was in Pittsburgh for a year, ends up in Anaheim. Hagelin ends up winning cups and then ends up in Washington. January 21st, 2016, Garbutt is traded to Anaheim for Yuri Seacat going to Chicago. So nothing. They got absolutely nothing from that trade for giving away Patrick Sharp. February 9th, 2016, Ottawa gets Dion Phaneuf, Matt Fradden, Kaysen Bailey, Ryan Rupert, and Cody Donaghy. Toronto gets Jared Cohen, Milan Michalek, Colin Greening, Tobias Lindbergh, and a 2nd-round pick. Toronto just wanting to get rid of Phaneuf. That's that job right there. Colorado on February 21st gets Sean Mathias for Toronto getting Colin Smith and a 4th-round pick. February 22nd, 2016, Roman Polak and Nick Spaulding go to San Jose in exchange for Rafi Torres in 2 seconds, since Torres is not playing anymore since he merely murdered Jacob Silverberg. February 22nd, 2016, Marcus Granlund is traded to Calgary for... That's not Michael Granlund, so I don't care. February 23rd, 2016, Washington gets Mike Weber for a 3rd-round pick going to Buffalo. Great value for Mike Weber, I will say. February 25th, 2016, Chicago gets Andrew Ladd, Jay Harrison, and Matt Frazier from Winnipeg for Mark O'Donoghue, a 1st and a 3rd. A 1st for Ladd is steep. I would have just not taken Jay Harrison or Matt Frazier. Just for Ladd, I would have given up Mark O'Donoghue and the 3rd-round pick if I could do that. A 1st for Ladd. Ladd was good. He wasn't that good. Of course, Ladd comes back. February 26, 2016, Chicago then trades Rob Scuderi to the LA Kings for Christian Ehrhoff. Weird one there. February 26, 2016, Chicago's not done because they acquire Thomas Fleischmann and Dale Weiss from Montreal for Philip Deneau and a 2nd-round pick. Fleischmann didn't do much, often a scratch. Weiss scored 1 goal in the playoffs. I remember that. But yeah, the Hawks were better without making that trade. Let's see. It's on no. February 27, 2016, James Reimer and Jeremy Morin are then traded to San Jose for Alex Stalock, Ben Smith, and a conditional fourth going to Toronto. Stalock, Smith, Morin, all Blackhawks. February 27, 2016, I never even knew Yuri Hudler was a Panther, but he's traded there by Calgary for a second and a fourth. February 27, 2016, the Panthers also get Teddy Purcell for a conditional third. And February 27, 2016, Pittsburgh gets Justin Schultz from Edmonton for a third. This is a really nothing there. February 28, 2016, Eric Stahl goes to the Rangers for Alexei Sorella, a second and a second, so going to Carolina. Carolina's still not doing very well. I mean, they're above 500, but all those overtime losses make them below. But they get rid of Eric Stahl, an icon. February 28, 2016, the LA then gets Chris Versteeg for a Valentin Zykov and a conditional fifth going to Carolina. February 28, 2016, while dumping contracts, Washington trades Brooks Laich, Connor Carrick, and a second to Toronto for Daniel Winnick and a fifth. So Brooks Laich's contract is now off the books. Nothing there. February 29, 2016, Colorado gets Mikhail Bodker for Alex Tanguay, Connor Bleakley, and Kyle Wood. February 29, 2016, Chris Russell goes to Dallas for Jyrki Jokipaka, Brett Pollock, and a conditional second. February 29, 2016, Anaheim gets Brandon Peary for a sixth. February 29, 2016, so I guess this is the deadline, Boston gets John Michael Lyles in exchange for Anthony Camara, a third and a fifth. Anything else? February 29, 2016, New Jersey gets Devontae Smith-Pelly for Stefan Matteau going to Montreal. February 29, 2016, the Bruins get Lee Stepniak for a fourth and a second going to New Jersey. February 29, 2016, Jamie McGinn goes to Anaheim from Buffalo for a conditional third. Nothing there. February 29, 2016, Patrick Maroon goes to Edmonton for Martin Journotte and a fourth going to Anaheim. And February 29, 2016, Calgary gets Nicholas Backstrom and a sixth-round pick for David Jones. And I believe that is it. I mean, after the season was over, Erica Branson's traded to Vancouver with a fifth for Jared McCann and a second and a fourth, so Jared McCann's name was thrown around since then. But yeah. And then in the offseason, June 15th, Teravainen and Bickle go to Carolina for a second and a third, another brain horrible move by Chicago. San Jose then, nothing there. Arizona, Goligoski goes to Arizona for a fifth going to Dallas. Jimmy Vesey goes to Buffalo for Minnesota's third-round pick. And Toronto trades Frederik Anderson to Toronto. Toronto gets Frederik Anderson for a first and a conditional second going to Anaheim, as well as Florida gets Keith Yandel for a sixth and a conditional fourth going to the New York Rangers. Panthers also get Reed O'Bara for Rocco Grimaldi going to Colorado. So, overall, a ton of trades. A lot of big names move. A lot of names move multiple times. But yeah, the 2015-16 NHL season, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Do have some other video ideas if I can get to them, along with these finishing up these season videos. Trying to finish up these season videos first, and then I'll get into the other stuff I want to do. But I shall see you all in the next video. Have a good one.